entered the field of nutrition rather via food chemistry, more precisely during my PhD studies. What I liked about nutrition was that it is a very applied field. And of course, everyone has to eat, and it appears that what we eat has great implications on our lifestyle, on health. It's a very important topic for all of us. It also played a role and has been playing in performance and like sports nutrition. That's interesting if you are into sports, and I was at the time. And of course, a later aspect that become a bit more, let's say, apparent in the following years and maybe decades is that nutrition is also very important from a global perspective for food security and of course also for sustainability of the planet. Of course, nutrition is definitely not an isolated field, and I admit the borders are somewhat a bit fuzzy and not very clear. So indeed, other fields, including also, for example, toxicology and other domains, of course, clearly interact with nutrition. This interdisciplinary, I would say, is actually crucial for understanding the larger picture and, of course, also for exploring a new path in the area. And the journals should definitely embrace such interdisciplinary topics, even maybe if it's not always easy to find authors and also reviewers, I mean, experts in the domain. So, for example, this may require that editors also step out of their maybe original comfort zone, that together with reviewers from individual domains, they kind of underpin the interdisciplinary topic, and perhaps with other editors that they try to critically judge the content of this work. And I think it's also more and more difficult to find such also willing referees and experts, especially interdisciplinary ones, maybe for journals. So maybe also from the journal side, we have to see whether we can give some additional incentives to such referees, such as maybe waiving APC fees and so forth. The question, I would also say, first of all, I have to state that I'm not really a perfect expert in this domain, but from what I sense in the area, and of course, nutrition here is not an exact science if you compare this to mathematics, for example. But the concepts in the nutrition area, they seem to be, I would say, changing over time. So there are some paradigm shifts here and there occasionally. So we should surely stay, I would say, open for new topics and new ideas. Intermittent fasting as part of the chrononutrition field is, to me, a good example. So simplistically phrased, the chrononutrition, maybe you are not what you eat, but you are also when you eat. And of course, we should follow still scientifically prudence. So we should stay critical also to new concepts. But nevertheless, I think we should be open for those. So I would say, despite enthusiasm toward novel fields and concepts, we still have to question the validity of those new fields. For intermittent fasting, for example, I would say the devil is as often in the detail. So for some persons, such an approach may work. For others, not necessarily. Take the example, if you would be thinking about a construction worker that has to go out and do a lot of physical activity during his regular workday, it might be difficult to follow these intermittent fasting concepts. But for many, more like us, who have more sitting position, I would say, during the day, it could be an interesting alternative. And especially if you have maybe tried out other diets or dietary concepts and they haven't been showing much success for you, that could be nice. And then you could try to follow these different intermittent fasting concepts from maybe not eating much in the morning, starting in the afternoon, or kind of putting it, laying it out over a week, that you have maybe 2 days or even more where you don't eat a lot of food. So indeed, some approaches are interesting. I think we need more research about it. But I still believe that some hold promise, at least for some part of the population. Sure, there is. Of course, the most important ones are the ones that nobody has on their radar. But of course, we cannot talk about something we have no clue about yet at all. So, but I'm sure there will be more paradigm shifts that we even don't think about yet now. For the moment, I would say there are definitely some interesting things that, at least at the moment, have been understudied that may include essential nutrients, but even maybe other non-essential dietary constituents. Take, for example, apocarotenoids, small fragments of native carotenoids that, at least in planta, act maybe as hormones for the plants, but they still can have, even after intake and absorption in humans, have health beneficial properties that we, I would say, barely understand for the time being. Take crocin or quercetin, for example. So our knowledge on many of these compounds and their metabolism and the health benefits that they may have in store are fairly little understood. And I'm sure that we learn maybe more about it. And then there are some other also neglected nutrients. Think, for example, of new concepts like vitamin concepts. There has been talk at the moment about, for example, a new vitamin A, vitamin A5, that kind of belongs overall under the umbrella of vitamin A similar compounds, but they might interact on novel pathways, specifically maybe interacting on molecular factors, on receptors such as RXR, maybe specifically retinoid X receptor. And these are novel concepts, I think, that also are coming out now. So I'm sure that there will be still more interesting things coming up in the near future. I've been following the journal for indeed quite some time, even before 2014, when I joined more officially, because my doctor father already had this kind of journal on board at the ETH in Zurich, the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, that is, since the 90s. So I've been following even until then. And of course, yeah, eventually I kind of inherited that journal from him. I think I was originally, and still am, impressed about the long-standing history of the journal. I mean, there are so many new journals out there now, but many have a very short history. And I found it impressive that this journal kind of survived at least one World War. I mean, the World War II, since it originated in the 30s in Switzerland. But nevertheless, since I've been editor-in-chief, important steps, in my opinion, were, first of all, to go online, because earlier everything was done on paper. So just to put it out online and fully more automate everything on the internet, streamline the process further, and also help to brush up and improve a bit on the impact factor, which was a nice outcome. And I guess later on, of course, it's also interesting to see the further changes that happened now when we moved to open access after, of course, IIM Press took over the journal. Interesting question, and maybe many of us scientists, they first start slowly developing, and first of all, maybe they focus quite a lot on themselves, which of course is important. But I think when you develop further, you realize that, okay, you are one small part of a bigger jigsaw puzzle. So I think you realize that you can be more productive and stronger, especially in a harmonious and dedicated team, if you find that and if you can develop it. So I think the complementarity of knowledge is crucial, and also to understand the boundaries of your own expertise, which every one of us has, and acknowledge this and really see how your contribution fits into the bigger picture. So I can only say it's important to think of becoming more open, to share your knowledge. Of course, it's always a bit of risk on one hand, but you can benefit a lot from sharing. And at least I've figured out on my side, it has been a very rewarding experience, since you can really develop a more true sense of the scientific community. And for the editorial work, to come back also to the journal, this can be beneficial for attracting additional authors, setting up your editorial board, making connections that can lead to linking up with conferences, creating special issues on certain events, and secure, of course, more motivated people, referees, and editors. And for me personally, I have learned on a lot of new additional topics that I wasn't maybe originally trained on, for example, in epidemiology, and additional aspects in food safety when joining EFSA, and still trying to learn and to improve more. And I think it's a lifelong learning, and you benefit really more if you are in a consortium.